Can you talk about that oval table concept? So we've got 7 dogs around an oval table. How does that conversation work?
Well, in an organization, you need these 7 characters. You need these 7 dogs present. And what they represent is 7 different ways of thinking about a problem. So when you come up with a problem, you put it in the center of the table and you let each person go at that problem from their perspective. So you're going to get ideas that are going to come out. Somebody's going to say, well, we could do this. And Jack's going to say, well, you can't make it that way. But if you wanted that effect, you could do it this way. Okay, but then somebody else will say, well, as long as we're doing that, can we also do this? And then they eventually run out of ideas because they've got a much better idea, much better product than they would otherwise have. And it's that cross-fertilization that produces the great idea.
Hey, everybody, and welcome. I am Morgan Giss McDonald, founder and CEO of Paper Raven Books, and I have with us today author Doug Bowers, who is just releasing We Are Alpha Dogs. Doug, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Morgan. Happy to see you.
Happy to see you too. And the great thing about We Are Alpha Dogs is that on the surface, it is a fun, lighthearted story. And there's a much deeper kind of storyline that's happening that you and I have talked about before. And I'd love to kind of open up to our audience. So on the surface, We Are Alpha Dogs is about 7 dogs on a farm. Can you kind of give us the sneak peek into what this book is about?
Well, these are 7 dogs on a farm, and they live with the family. In other words, they sleep in the house, and they're involved with the 2 girls and whatever the girls are doing. But they also work on the farm. They also make the farm functioning possible. And what happens is that they always go on trips with the family. And that's their kind of their bonus, their reward for being a part of the family and working on the farm. And this time, Dad didn't rent a large enough vehicle for them and the kids and the wife and him to go. So what they had to do was be left home, which is equivalent to being laid off if you're an employee. And so then we come to the decision of what are they going to do? And they have choices. They can run off. They can just sit there and do it exactly as they're told and let the organization die eventually, or they can become legendary. They can do something so spectacular that can't be ignored. So we have 2 problems here. We have a problem is that they have to decide what to do, but then we have a problem that the owner, the farmer, does not understand that these are qualified people who have options. And so is overlooking them and their capabilities. And so they have to go about figuring out how to become legendary. And each of the 7 dogs have different skill sets. They have different ways of hearing things. They have different ways of giving out information. And they have to coordinate among themselves how to get this done. So the book is really substantially just dialogue between the dogs talking about how we're going to get this done. And a person should be able to see who they are. And in fact, they could modify that a little bit by going and taking the test on the website and then finding out who they are and getting a short description. And then when they read the book, they can say, yeah, that's me. Yeah, that is the way I respond to things.
So, okay, but you're previewing for us. The reason there are 7 dogs is that there are kind of 7 styles of communication. Is that how you would describe it?
I would say that there are 7 essences of personality, and they come at things from substantially different directions. And oftentimes they conflict with someone else. And the problem in an organization is when you have that gap, that connection gap. So wherever 2 or more people gather, then you have a problem. You have the potential for a problem. So if you can solve that problem, the rest of things become easy. Because if you can solve the communication problem and the work together problem, then if things don't go well down the road, we'll all fix that. We'll all get together and make that work, because that's what we're doing, because we're all going in the same direction. We're all in the same wagon, and we understand ourselves. We understand what we're trying to accomplish, and we have concerns and we have opportunities that we see. We have dreams and we have other things, but we're all working together. So when we need something done, we go to the dog that's good at doing that. Why would you just pick anybody when you could pick somebody who's skilled at doing something?
Can you give us a couple of examples? So there are 7 total, and you even, if people are watching on the video, they can see behind you, we've got Big Dog and Ranger and Tracy and Buster behind you. Those are 4 of the 7. But can you just give us maybe a couple of examples to highlight how 2 different essences might seem like? Who's Tracy and who's Buster?
Well, Tracy is all about loving and caring and nurturing and likes to take care of other people. I was talking to a purchasing agent last Friday, actually, and I asked her how she was doing as a purchasing agent. She says, I'm here, but it's not what you are, is it? No, it's not. I'm just here. But you're really loving and caring, wants to take care of other people. That's all I want to do. So you got the wrong person, you got the right person in the wrong slot. So you need to change that around. You can easily have somebody who looks at things from the risk standpoint. They focus on the risk first. So they say something will not work right. And then you got the guy, Jack, who's the production guy. He said, well, I just haven't fixed that yet, or I can fix that. And he doesn't see risk because everything's fixable to him. Whereas in Scotty, there's just problems. And so if you go to Scotty and you want to talk about how things could be, he can't understand what you're saying because he's still focused on the risk. So there's a conflict between these two. If you go to Stan and you say, we should do this, Stan will say, do you have a strategy? Have you done some math on this? Have you figured out whether this will work? Does it have all the components? And the other person probably says, oh, well, no, I haven't done that. Okay, well, that's what Stan's good at. If you're trying to figure out what should be unencumbered by what is, then you're going to talk to Ranger, because Ranger can see the future, can see what we should be doing and can do. But on the other hand, Jack can't. But Jack can make it happen, but Jack can't see the future, whereas Ranger can see the future. And to coordinate everybody, you need somebody who can translate between the two, because there's going to be conflicts between the two. And when you get that, that's what Big Dog is for. Big Dog is to translate, to give resources, to help set direction, to pull people's ideas out, because some people will communicate and some people won't. So you need somebody who's going to work with people and make that happen. And that's what Big Dog's about. So they all have their importance.
We need Buster. We need Buster.
Buster's all about sales.
There we go.
And in his world, everything is yes. There is no such thing as no. No, it means not now. It just doesn't mean no. And so what he wants to do is make things happen from a sales standpoint. He wants to take the message out, carry it out. He's the guy who can do that better than anybody else.
What I love about the 7 dogs framework that you've set up for us, and We Are Alpha Dogs, is that even as I know you're just giving like very brief kind of blow by blows, but even as you're giving us these brief blow by blows, I'm able to see parts of myself in like some dogs, or like my husband, or some people on my team, or my parents. Like even with those brief descriptions, you sort of can very quickly identify, I think that describes so and so in my life. And almost what you're giving us is a heuristic, right? It's a shortcut for how to have better communication. And I know we haven't gotten into your background, but you have an extensive background in business and leadership. And so this is like a shortcut for teams and organizations to communicate better. And what we were just talking about before we kind of hit record on this interview was if 2 people are not connecting, then nothing's really going to happen. No problem's going to get solved. Can you talk about how you've seen that connection point, that process of connecting? How does that work, or maybe not work in a lot of business contexts?
I can give a family example. That's part of it.
Yeah.
It's not my family, it's somebody else's family. This woman came to me and says, I can't get my husband to cut the lawn. Okay. What is he like? We find out he's a Jack, which is about getting things done, the do it guy. So what you do is you go to him and you say, how do I start the lawnmower? Well, you just pull the cord and it starts, And you come back a few minutes later and say, well, I couldn't get that done. What else do I do? Well, you do this. Okay, then you come back. Eventually he's going to say, why don't you just get out of the way and let me cut it for you? So she got the lawn cut, didn't have to do it herself, but she was talking to Jack the way Jack wanted to be talked to. If I was to, if my sister or my brother's wife was to say, There's a sale right after Thanksgiving at Penny's. Would you like to come help me? Talk to him, and he's a Jack, and he's like, no, I'm really kind of busy that day. But if I call him up and say, hey, the tool store's got a tool sale at 6 o'clock in the morning, you want to come? Oh yeah. Because see, you're right in his alley.
Got it.
He's not in any other alley. He's only in that alley. So if you want to talk to him, you need to talk to him the way he's going to hear you. And then when he says something to you, you need to understand what he's saying in terms of him. Not in terms of anybody else, not in terms of you. He's saying in terms of him. And all the dogs are that way. Because if you Scotty, for example, let's say you need to get something done, and you're trying to get Scotty to agree to something. He can't agree to it because the risk factors are cloud anything he wants to do or say. So you're not getting through to him because he's got the risk factors in the way. If you admit to him that there are these risk factors, he says, okay, now you understand me. Now I can go on. Everything flows. But until you get that out of the way, nothing's going to work.
So it's not just about talking more. It's about talking in a way, and this is what you've said to me before. It's talking in a way that the other person can hear you, and hearing the other person in the way that they're trying to communicate. So it's got to be, you've got to talk to each type of person, or each dog type a little bit differently. And that's what we get to see in We Are Alpha Dogs. I love the way that you set the book up, because it is primarily dialogue, right? It's this scenario of these 7 types who are going after a goal together, and you're seeing how they communicate to each other. And they even have little tiffs, little moments of wait, I didn't understand what that person or what that dog wanted and why. And it directly mirrors what we experience inside of teams and organizations and families. What do you think is like the big takeaway when someone reads this whole We Are Alpha Dogs parable? What do you want them to really walk away with at the end of the story?
I want them to realize that they have value, that they bring something to the table that is needed and actually wanted once people understand what you're bringing to the table. So it empowers you to be the best person you can be in terms of who you are. I mean, you've been practicing all your life to be one of these characters. So why not just continue to be the best one you can be? I've given speeches on it before, and I gave a speech once, and guy came up to me at the end. He says, I'm a Scotty. I'm always focused on the risk, but nobody appreciates me. I finally found out someone who realized who I was. And now that person goes back to an organization empowered to say, okay, there are risks in this deal. There are risks in this product that we're making. Let me tell you what the risks are, because he will find them and no one else will find them. He'll find some that don't exist too, but he'll find them. And then everybody else can take a look at it and say, okay, well, we can deal with these risks. Another situation where a professional engineer was providing a method of operation or a bid quote to the Navy. And she said, has my Scotty looked at it? And he had name Bob or something like that, but has Scotty approved it? No, we didn't show it to him because he's always finding fault with it. Okay, well, it's not going anywhere until he approves it, because on the other side of the table, when we submit that proposal, there's a Scotty sitting there. And he's just waiting to jump on this deal. And we need to get it out of the way first so he doesn't find it. Otherwise, it's not going to fly anyway. So we might as well work on ourselves, work around our oval table and figure out how we're going to make this thing work. And then we got a chance, because otherwise you're going to get shot down.
Can you talk about that oval table concept? So we've got 7 dogs around an oval table. How does that conversation work?
Well, in an organization, you need these 7 characters. You need these 7 dogs present. They have to be in very small organizations. You can hire 1 or 2 of them, but basically all 7 have to be there if you're trying to go somewhere. And what they represent is 7 different ways of thinking about a problem. So when you come up with a problem, you put it in the center of the table and you let each person go at that problem from their perspective and their perspective only. And so you make sure that's how they think, that's how they function. So you're going to get ideas that are going to come out. Somebody's going to say, well, we could do this. And Jack's going to say, well, you can't make it that way. but if you wanted that effect, you could do it this way. Okay, but then someone else will say, well, as long as we're doing that, can we also do this? And then they eventually run out of ideas because they've got a much better idea, much better product than they would otherwise have.
Yeah.
And it's that cross-fertilization that produces the great idea. Because if you've got somebody who's an owner of a business, who signs paychecks, who nobody wants to disagree with, then you have cut yourself off from all the great ideas that other people have. You've also cut yourself off from all the information that's coming into the organization, because I don't want to hear about complaints.
Yeah.
All I want to hear about good things. Well, but if we solve the complaints, then we'd have good things. We can't get by the fact that you're not willing to listen. And so if you're an owner of a business and you say, I want to have pink Cadillacs, I want to sell pink Cadillacs in my auto dealership. If you can convince the table, the other 6 people, that pink Cadillacs are a hot deal, then go for it. But if you can't convince them, then you need to have some degree of humility and say, maybe I'm wrong. So if you really insist that they're right, it's a simple thing. You go out and test it. Everybody gets a picture of pink Cadillacs, and everybody's responsible to go find 5 people and show it to them. Do you like pink Cadillac? And see if anybody likes it. And when you come back and you've got 30 people saying no, and you can't find anyone that said yes, only you, then you need to rethink that position. And so what you'll get is a far richer answer when all of them are sitting around the table taking a look at something. And it just really doesn't even matter what. They will come up with a better answer than you will. 7 minds are better than 1.
And I think that We Are Alpha Dogs really highlights for us that it's not just 7 minds of the same type. It's not 7 Scotties.
Oh no, they're all different.
It is the variety in perspectives that really gives us the richest answer and the most productive way forward.
Right. The last thing you need is 7 CPAs sitting around a table designing a couch. I mean, that is going to be a disaster. That will not work. You can't have 7 Scotties sitting around a table designing a tool either, because no tool will work. Every tool has problems.
Yeah.
So, but you can solve these things working together, because that richness of information, that richness of thought carries the day. And when someone else is having a problem, you've got 6 other people who can help you.
Yeah. I
mean, it's really that simple. I mean, Buster says, I can't get to first base with this customer. He can't understand what I'm saying. What is he? Well, he's Scotty. Okay, let's have Scotty talk to him.
Yeah.
Scotty will say, you know what, man, I understand what you're saying. You got all these risks, got all these problems. I understand you. Okay, well, as long as you understand me now, you can bring Buster back in.
Now we can communicate. Yeah.
Because now we can instruct Buster that this is the problem. It's not you. It's not the product. It's the risks that cloud the judgment.
Yes.
But we all have those. We all have things that are in the way of us trying to accomplish something. And we need help from other people. I mean, look at this book as an example. We had a design contest. We had 156 submissions on the cover. And the cover I picked, the one I liked, no one else liked. No one. And so I had to say, well, okay, what do you others like? And they liked the one that we chose. So I said, okay, let me go test it. So I went out there and I tested it against other books. I got plenty of books in the library, so it's easy to test. And everybody's coming back to the same one. So I'm evidently wrong. So humility is a great characteristic to have. That I have to admit that my process, my thought is not the correct one. Just because it's my book doesn't mean that I'm necessarily right. And the same thing was true throughout the book. When other people looked at it, editors for one thing, looked at it and they had ideas to make changes. When the voiceover people looked at it, they had ideas for changes. And so we made some changes there. And it's better for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's clearly a better product than we would otherwise have if it was only me. And we have a podcast starting up, and our podcast is called The Oval Table. And we invite people to the table, and it is amazing the things that can happen when you're open to those things happening.
Yes.
Because other people are coming up with ideas, they're sitting around the table that I frankly hadn't thought of, frankly could not execute no matter how much time I had. But for them, it was easy. And all of a sudden, we've got something really good going on that we otherwise wouldn't have if it was just me. I mean, I have the basic content and the structure. Sure, I have that. But there's also execution. There's also communication. There's also follow-up. There's also a lot of other things that go on to making a product a valuable product. And I alone don't have those. Do I understand all the dogs? You bet. Do I understand who they all are? You bet. Do I understand how they communicate? Yes. But that doesn't mean at the moment of decision, I'm not blinded by my own self.
I think that's a huge takeaway for me reading the book, is that when you are a business owner or a team leader or even a parent of a family, you get so stuck in your own perspective that you forget how valuable it is to intentionally open up to the other perspectives. And in this case, we're identifying 6 other perspectives. You can go, if you're curious, you can check out the book. You can go to paperravenbooks.com/wearealphadogs. You can grab a free copy of the ebook, and the physical book and the audio book are available as well. And if you're curious, if you're listening to us talk about Tracy and Buster and Scotty and Ranger and Jack and Big Dog, and you're thinking, well, I want to know what kind of dog I am. Luckily, very quick to the point quiz will get you there. We'll get you your answer. You can take that quiz at wearealphadogs.com/quiz, get some information about your style and also the other dogs in the 7-dog style portfolio. So thank you, Doug, for coming on and talking to us about the dogs.
Think how valuable that is, that in 2 minutes, in less than 2 minutes, you can figure out who you are on a deeper level than you've ever seen before.
Yeah.
And then you can sit and say, well, who's that other clown I work with? Who's that Bob at the end of the hall as a prof? Find out who that is. Oh, now I understand how to talk to him.
Yeah.
I had a guy once came to me and says, I'm having a problem in my MBA class. The teacher won't talk to me. So, okay, who is he? Described who he was. And I said, okay, go back to him and talk to him this way. He calls me the next day. He says, I got his private cell number. Because he talked to him differently.
Wow.
It's the same content. It's the same stuff. It's just the way you communicate it. It's so important.
Wow. Yeah, that's right.
Makes all the difference.
Yeah, makes all the difference. So if you are thinking about some relationships where at work or at home, or maybe at an MBA program, if you're wanting to communicate in a different way to get a different outcome, then maybe knowing whether that other person is a Tracy or a Jack or a Buster could be really helpful. So you can go to wearealphadogs.com/quiz, get your dog type, and also get to know the types of the other people who are around you, and read We Are Alpha Dogs so you can get the full sort of parable explanation of how all of these dogs interact with each other. Well, thank you, Doug. I appreciate your time coming in today. Y'all grab your copy, paperravenbooks.com/wearealphadogs. It's available globally. Grab your copy today. And Doug, we will see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Morgan.
Yeah, bye.